Hey guys, welcome into this segment from our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. In order to get the full podcast, go down to the description, go to Blog Talk Radio / The Onside Kick to download the full thing. Enjoy, everybody. And Mark, let's move on into our next segment. We're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, the third-place finishers in the AFC North last year. Same thing I did for the Browns, a little bit about what they did in the offseason. They re-signed guys like Kilpatrick, LaFell, Winston. They bring in guys like Minter and Andre Smith. They got a ton of losses on this team, a ton. Burkhead's gone, Dansby's gone, Hunt's gone, Pico's gone, Whitworth's gone, Zeitler's gone. How do you say Zeitler, Kevin Zeitler? Correct me down below in the comment section, Bengal fans. I know you guys will. They lose a lot. This is a team that, to me, I think they have more pressure on them than any team in this division. Because I'm going to be honest, I'm starting this preview off where we usually do. Is this the year where does he get fired if they don't do well? Is this the year where he finally gets canned if they don't do well?
Should have got fired last year. Should have gotten fired the year before that. Should have gotten fired every year. No, I mean, it's just... my question that...
And Marvin Lewis, I meant, not Marvin Lynch.
Someone I have to ask this question about every year is, when is enough enough? When are you sick and tired finally and willing to move on? When those of you at home are in that relationship and it's not going anywhere and you're not sure if you even really like the person that much anymore, but you're just there because it's kind of comfortable and it's familiar and, yeah, okay, it's better than being alone. When is enough enough, and when are you ready to actually move on and try something else? Because we've already seen as far as Marvin Lewis can go. We have seen it for so damn long now. When will you say, I need to see something else? I need to try something else and see if it will get me to the promised land.
I think that it should have been like last year, and I know that Bengal fans are going to say, but guys, that was his first year not making the playoffs, but not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 AFC wildcard game losses in a row.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? So if you're okay with going to at least the wildcard round and losing, because he's never been past the wild card round, then fine. Say you're okay with Marvin Lewis. But I think that this team has, to me, the most pressure on it in the AFC North to do well. And one of the big additions that they have coming in, I mentioned how they re-signed Brandon LaFell. So now they've got A.J. Green on one side, LaFell on the other. They pick up a nice, speedy slot receiver in first-round pick John Ross.
I like this because obviously you look at what is the biggest benefit in Cincinnati, and it's the passing game. It's Andy Dalton. It's A.J. Green.
Tyler Eifert.
Of course, Eifert. The defense, they made improvements on defense as well, and kind of getting some of that depth, getting some of that youth kind of to inject into the team. The problem for me is, yes, these weapons are nice, and I really love getting Brandon LaFell. I mean, that's huge. That is one of my favorite offseason signings. But if this offensive line still isn't any good, what's it matter? The ball's not getting to any of these guys. Yeah. And you invest in a guy like Joe Mixon in the second round, which I'm very interested to see, because
I was going to bring that up.
I am not high on Joe Mixon as like a lot of other people are.
How do you think he contributes to this team? Because right now in the depth chart, he is third because, of course, Jeremy Hill and Gio are going to be in front of him. Very
change of pace. He's going to have to fight for his carries. He really will. Even though he got drafted in the second round, I think
literally
he's going to have to
fight for his carries.
He might.
Literally.
He might. But the problem is, none of these running backs are going to do much if, once again, this offensive line is not that great. The offensive line is a giant question mark. We're not sure how it's going to perform. We're not sure if Andrew Luck is what I wanted to say. Andy Dalton is going to have enough time to throw that ball. We're not sure if the running backs are going to get the push that they need to actually make a big difference. And it's unfortunate because this team, which was always a very strong team, became very middle of the pack last year, and that's a huge issue for it as well. Of course, with a little bit of an aging defense certainly doesn't help either. But the defense, even though it was getting older, it wasn't performing as well as it could have, it still wasn't that bad of a defense. It really wasn't. The problem they had was this team couldn't score points, I mean, when you have a bad offensive line, that's what happens. You don't have the opportunities. You don't have the time to do what you need to do.
Well, and one thing that I think will be beneficial for this offense was last year was the first year for offensive coordinator Ken Zampezi, where he was taking over for Hugh Jackson, who took the job in Cleveland. Hopefully, maybe we get this is the second year with a better rapport with that offense, with Andy Dalton. I mean, Andy Dalton to me doesn't look like a quarterback that's hard to work with by any stand, but you're right. This offensive line, a huge question mark. And if Andy Dalton can't have enough time to throw, just ask Jay Cutler how that works out. And if Jeremy Hill or Giovanni Bernard or Joe Mixon kind of need ways to create their own running lanes and can't, this offense might be stalled more than it's actually moving somewhere. And then if that happens and you're forced to punt more, that means you put your defense not just in situations where they're on the field more, but where they're in short yardage situations more often than not.
Yeah. And obviously that's just the recipe for disaster. Everybody's knowing that. So it's interesting. This Cincinnati Bengals roster is a lot better than that 6-9-1 record was last year. That's for sure. And of course, obviously the offseason they made some additions. But this is a team that needs to find its identity again. They need to rejuvenate themselves. They need to prove that they aren't just wasting everybody's time. That's what it comes down to. And a lot of that is the system, getting more comfortable with that. A lot of it is making the improvements that they made, giving Andy Dalton a new weapon with Brandon LaFell. I do think that Joe Mixon, they do expect to use him. They definitely do. Getting the youth on this roster for the defense, a lot of these key components are things that are meant to kind of spark this team again and get them back into the playoffs where they belong. Unfortunately, Baltimore got better. I don't know if I want to say that Pittsburgh got much better because they were a really good team last year.
But Pittsburgh still kept pieces.
Exactly. They maintained their pace.
Let's put it this way. Big Ben didn't retire. That was the big thing hanging over the Steelers during this offseason. But the one thing I also want to mention with the defensive side is the kind of big free agent signing that they bring in. Really, it was one of the only ones on the defense that they brought in was, like I mentioned, Kevin Minter. The other one was Andre Smith, who they brought in for the offensive line from Minnesota. Minter last year with Arizona played in 16 games, had 4 pass deflections, 3.5 sacks, and had 59 tackles all of last year. He needs to be a guy at the middle linebacker position that can kind of be an anchor for them with this linebacking core, because this defense, I'm telling you, if the offense isn't going to be able to get going because of the offensive line, this defense is going, I'm guaranteeing it, will be in a lot of short field situations, and that's something you're not going to want to see if you are if you're Marvin Lewis or if you're defensive coordinator Paul Gunther of this team. You're going to want to see your offense get the ball out a little more, so if you have to punt, you can still have good field position for your defense so their backs aren't against the wall right away.
Yeah, without a doubt. Cincinnati, I mean, I feel like we talk about it every year with the pressure on Marvin Lewis. Will he finally win some playoff games?
This has to be the year that a decision is made if he doesn't, though.
I don't know. I mean, if they miss the playoffs again, then yeah, I think they have to fire him. They have to admit it.
Because I'll be honest, I don't see this team making the playoffs. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now, and I know we're going to get into the predictions later in the year, starting later this month with our season predictions, but just looking at the first 5 games alone, I'm eyeballing it, and I could see maybe a 1-4, 2-3 start to this team. Ravens, Packers, Buffalo Bills, losses right away. Cleveland's a win, Houston's a toss-up. Like, that's...
I would call the Bills probably a win.
Even out of the first, so, okay, still, maybe 3 wins. Like, 3 wins is your miraculous kind of standpoint, but even with that Bills game, you could look at that, and then Houston. What if they lose Houston, win Buffalo? So I look at it, and I see 1 or 2 wins in those first 5 games before the bye. Then after the bye, you get Pittsburgh, you get Indy.
I do think that this schedule's not terrible to Cincinnati. I think they have a chance at a wild card spot. I still think I'm still going to pencil Pittsburgh in probably as the best case to win the division again. I really like some additions that the Ravens made. Cincinnati, if the offensive line isn't fixed, none of this matters. But I do think they have the chance to be an above 500 team, to make a run in the wild card and try and get their way back into the playoffs. And that, of course, will manage to save Marvin Lewis's job.
See, and the thing that makes me kind of weary about their playoff hopes is right now my only 2 locks for divisions in my mind are New England and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They're the only 2. In the West, I think we get 2 playoff teams. I think it's going to be the Chiefs and the Raiders again, which whoever gets whatever, we'll decide that later, but they're in the playoff. That means one of your wild card spots is locked up from that AFC West side.
Yeah.
Then looking at everything else, it's going to be a dogfight for that last spot, especially with the Bengals, because we don't know how the Colts are going to be this year. The Titans we're expecting them to be an improved team. If Houston doesn't win the division, are they going to be in the race for a wild card spot? The Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, how are they going to play this year?
Yeah.
And then you got the Ravens in your own division. There are going to be a lot of teams. I look at a lot of teams that could get that 6th spot in the AFC.
Mean, the hard thing, obviously, right now is the fact that there's a lot of teams that on paper look like they can compete.
Until we play games and
then there's
going to
be a lot of teams that are taken out of it pretty quickly.
Notice how I didn't say like the Chargers or the Jaguars, though.
Hey, you never know. The Bengals, I think they've got a shot. I really do. I think they can bounce back. I mean, they weren't that far. I mean, they could have been a 7-9 team last year.
Yeah.
They had a tie last year, so I mean, technically, you can say they could have been a 6-10 team as well. But they still were very close to being at 500. So I don't want to completely disrespect this team, even though really, I mean,
and I'm not saying they're going to have a just shit season. I'm just saying I kind of find it hard for them to be. Yep. They're a top 6 team in the AFC.
It'll be tough, but they can do it. I think they can do it. I don't think it's an easy road. I don't think it's a likely road, but I think they can do it.
I mean, it's not a for sure. Like, for me, I'm not saying, well, no, they're not going to do it. I'm just looking right now. I am more of the, what's the opposite to an optimist? Is that pessimist? I am very pessimistic about this Bengal team and about their schedule moving forward for this year. But is there anything that we didn't touch on the Bengals that you feel like we needed to? I feel like the Bengals are that team where this might be the shortest preview of the 4, just because it's plain and simple. Your offense, the offensive line has to play better. Andy Dalton has to get the ball to his playmakers. And then on defense, is this Bengals team going to put its defense in shit situations? Those are the big points for me.
I mean, it's pretty simple for the Cincinnati Bengals. Offensive line needs to perform because you got weapons on offense. Your defense was fine last year. So, pretty simple. Just like you're saying, have the ability to score points and sustain drives.
Well, and this is where I'm going to turn the conversation then on to you guys. Bengal fans, let us know down below in the comment section, what do you guys think? What do you think about your team, about your offense, about what we said, about some of the areas that we were concerned about? And also let me know, do you guys think, give me a percentage. How confident are you that you guys will be one of the 6 teams to make the playoffs from the AFC? Let me know down below in the comment section. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment from the onside kick. If you think the fun stops there, you're wrong, because click the video right over here. What are you thinking? Come on, click it. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Bye, everybody.